Okay, YouTubers, space detectives, space freaks and pareidolia police. Today, we're having another quick game of interplanetary I Spy at an image spotted by a researcher called Thomas Smosny, who spotted this just yesterday, I think, or a couple of days ago. So I looked at that and I thought, wow. And he's put this enhancement up here as well, and another enhancement here, which has gone really dark. You can really see the shape of this thing. What I think this is a grave. And I'm going to show you it on the actual Gigapan here. Now, this is a really nice Gigapan, lovely and bright and clear image. And here it is. It's sort of over towards the left of the image. We have the Rover just down below. And how far is this from the Rover? Less than 20 feet. Well, less than 25 feet, probably about 20, I would say. It's hard to say exactly because we've got the ground sloping down. We've got Mount Sharp in the background here. We've got the lake bed there, that blue strip. And we've got various buttes and structures in the background here. And we just go above the Rover where we've got the number 1 here. Just go in there and zoom and over to the left a bit. There we are. There it is. Now, how big is this? 5, maybe 6 inches. Don't know exactly, but something in that ballpark in height. We have a very interesting structure standing up, and we have another one next to it. Now, what does that mean? Well, what I think this is, I can't zoom in any further on there. What I think this is a gravestone. Now, when you look at Thomas's image here, you can clearly see that it has parallel sides and 2 angles the same either side and a straight bit on the top there. So this is perfectly angled, I would say. It's probably a bit eroded, so it's not absolutely perfect. But what it seems to be, to me, is a headstone, a gravestone. And we have a footstone here, okay? And a sort of raised area in between, which looks like there might be something buried in it. Whether that would be a person or something, I would imagine so, something like that. So if you look at the really dark image he's got there, links will be below to all this stuff, by the way, in the description. You can link to the images and all these other links, so you can check out Thomas's post here. There we have it. I mean, look how clear that shape is. Now, the image quality isn't amazing because it's taken from the mass cam, and they're not very high-res images, but this is pretty good, actually. And if you're careful when you blur it a little bit before we darken it, then it looks fairly good, like I've done here. There's the raw clip there. You can see the raw clip is the sort of brownish one. This is an enhanced clip as well, and this is a more enhanced, darker clip to really push out the shape of this thing. Now, if that isn't artificial, I really don't know what is. I mean, we have 2 parallel sides, one here, and we have these angles, which are the same either side, here and here, and a flat top. And what we have in the middle here is what seems to be a skull carved into it, just here. You can see the 2 eyes there, and the nose. There's the nose, and the 2 black areas look like eyes, and you can even see what looks like a jaw coming down here. So we've got some detail there. In fact, you can see that a bit better on the smaller version. Okay, so there we are. What else could it be? I don't really know. It may not be a gravestone. It may be some other type of marker, but it seems to be part of a grave with a footstone here as well. So this is joined. Well, this is buried, obviously, in sand, but we have the headstone and the footstone here showing at the other end. Now, if we look at it on the Gigapan, it's a little bit more obvious because you've got the headstone and the footstone. And it seems to me that this is a burial. I mean, what else would you call it other than the grave or tomb? It's not really a tomb. Tombs are generally a bit more elaborate than graves. But I've got some examples here of some headstones on Earth. Some of them look quite stupid. Some of them look pretty scary. This is a tradition that goes back probably thousands of years, I'd imagine, in different cultures on Earth, where you have the depictions of the human skull and the skull and bones. There's loads of examples here. Some of these are real, some of these are fake, obviously. Some of these are ancient, and some of these are very new. Now, my stepdad's father used to make gravestones. He used to engrave them. He didn't do stuff like this. He would usually do much more traditional stuff and just do the lettering and carve the names, chisel the names out on the front of the person, names and dates and things like that. You know, usually in Roman style lettering. But these are more sort of Gothic or quasi-Gothic style sort of headstones. That's a typical shaped headstone there, but it's got the cross on there. A lot of these have got cross bones on them, which has weird connotations, but some of them are just skulls. There was a good example down here of a very eroded one like we have here. This is very old and eroded. There was another one down here somewhere which I thought was pretty cool. There's some of these, I mean, you even get these in places like Mexico and Central and South America, all over the world, different styles of skulls. I did do an art kind of project once about skulls and how our depiction of them changes in different periods and different parts of the world, and how they're shown in different ways in different cultures. But I digress. There was a really crusty one covered in moss, look. And there's a bunch of them here. Now, some of them look really elaborate, and some of them look really quite interesting. And I've been all over Europe and places like North Africa and Turkey and all sorts of places like that. And it's surprising how many places have got things like this on their bridges in the towns, and not just in graveyards, you know, but churches have an obsession with death. Of course, in most cultures, it's the religious people like the church and people like that actually deal with funerals. So there we are. So that was interesting. Anyway, just to show you some comparisons there. I haven't found one exactly the same, of course, because of course this one is on Mars. Some people will probably try and say it's on Devon Island, but since when did Devon Island look like a desert? And not only that, Gale Crater being 93 miles across, is it 93 or 96? It's 93, I think. 93 miles across is actually wider than the width of Devon Island, I think. So, or close to it. So you could probably fit most of Devon Island into Gale Crater. So, but people still say it after only watching one conspiracy video, which is well out of date and now irrelevant, I would say. So there we are. So, good find by Thomas here. I'm going to quickly now show you some very similar things that I found. Not far from here, in the same crater, within, I would say, within probably a kilometre of that one I just showed you, half a kilometre even. This is from Sol 521, so this was taken about 500 days earlier, approximately, and we have what looks like a more of a square one here, but with a circular carving on it, and there's even some kind of face or some kind of symbols on it, but it's so eroded and unclear. This is further away from the rover, this particular one, and doesn't look very clear when you get too close. You've got to kind of sit back a bit like that. You can see that semicircle in the raw image really clearly, and when you darken the contrast like I've done here, you can see symbols on it. So that was an interesting one. There was another one here which I found years and years ago. This one here, I found that in 2014. In fact, there's two, one by the side of it. There's one here which has got a perfectly semicircular part here, and there's even got a part there sticking up. And there's another one here. I mean, there are some weird slabs of rock lying around, and I really am sure a lot of them parts of buildings and structures, but also burials and graveyards and stuff like that. This one seems to have something on it as well, some kind of symbols or picture or something carved into it like a cross here. Just about make out there's a cross there, and what look like two eyes or two sort of eye-like shaped things, who knows. In fact, I've got a larger version of that here, which is a really old video I did, old video cover, and you can actually see there's something on it, and we've got this thing sticking up here. So you've got a very good shape to it, but also some detail with some symbols or something. But you can't really make out what they are, because unfortunately this is much further away. This is much larger than the one we're looking at today, but is much further away. So it's still not great quality detail there. There's also this thing. It's going to open. Yeah, thank you. There, this is one I found only last year. Now this looks like a grave headstone, but with an actual head carved onto it. You can see in semi-profile here. So you can see it in a sort of almost 3D because it's angled. We're not looking straight at it or from the side. We're looking from a sort of 45-degree angle almost, so we can see the head carved onto it. And you've even got different coloured concretion or concrete on here, which is blue, and then we've got the browner, darker rock here. So this looks like a headstone, part of a burial maybe, or even part of could even be part of a small sphinx or similar thing. How big's this? It's about the same size. This is about 6 or 7 inches. They're all about, I would say, about that. This one is quite a lot larger. This one here, I'd say that's at least double that size. It's probably more like 12 or 18 even, much larger. Then we have this structure, which is quite large. Now this is more like a dolmen, as we have here, which is a much more old, ancient way of burying people, where you would get standing kind of slabs and then make a sort of structure. Now this is more like a tomb rather than an actual grave, because it's a built structure with sides to it, made from crude pieces of rock and slabs of rock and then placed together. Now this may have been one of them, it may not be, I don't know. I mean, this in fact looks more like a sheet of metal here rather than rock. It's quite thin and it's quite shiny. But also we have here, underneath this part of it, we have something interesting inside, almost like there was something fossilized to it or something carved on it, or who knows. But some interesting details in here. It may even be an animal carving or something inside. So let's go in a bit closer to that, so we can see that a bit better. It's a bit dark, so you've got to let your eyes adjust. There we are. Let's go a bit brighter. And again. So you can see these structures here which look interesting. Are they carved? Maybe. Maybe not. Who's to say? Hard to tell with some of these things. So there's lots of examples of these things. I'm just going to show you one or two more very quickly now. There's what looks like a coffin here with glyphs on the side here. Quite a kind of flat slab on the top and things carved on the side, but this looks like gold leaf or gold on the side. And we even have what looks like here, if you brighten this one up, just here, is a little figure, like a little cherub or figurine carved onto the side of this thing. So you can just about make that out. And this is another example of one that's too dark. So let's go brighter with that as well. Because I used to not brighten things enough when I first started making videos, mainly because, stupidly, I had the brightness up too high on my screen. So everything looked nice and bright to me, but in reality it wasn't. And this is an example of that. There we are. Now you can see this thing here, which looks like a little cherub or carved figure just there. So that was interesting. But that's a really old find, that. I found that years ago. I can't remember what sol this is now, but it's not very far from this area here. It's all within about 1 kilometre or half a kilometre, something like probably only 300 or 400 metres perhaps, you know. So all these things are pretty much in the same area, and there's rows and rows of burials and statue heads and buttes with statue heads and carvings along the bottom and even on the top. So some of them were buildings, not all of them, of course. Let's go back to this folder. There's another example here of what looks like a lid of a coffin. Perfect, absolutely perfect, this one. So all these have been published before. I've got dozens of examples of things like this. I'm just picking out a few today that are like funerary art and coffins and coffin lids and gravestones and grave markers and that sort of thing. So this is about, I would say, about 5 feet long, possibly 6, but more like 5, I would say. So this is quite long, and we're looking at it from an angle. So if we were to straighten this out, this image, this would be 5 foot long, but we're looking at it at a slight angle. So it's a bit confusing when you look at that. There is also another one here. This is more like a literal headstone with a beveled edge, and this is a grave marker type piece of funerary art, I would say. But you can actually see the skull-like face with quite extraordinary detail on this one. This was really close to the Rover. Now obviously the Rover zooms in with the camera using the telephoto lens, so often it's not as close to these things as you think. It often zooms in from quite a long way off, half a mile or miles away, and it zooms right into things and takes photographs, and they look really sharp and clear. And this is one example. All I did was add a colour filter and play with the contrast and sharpened it, and we got this detail. We've got teeth here, we've got nose, we've got eyes, but a beveled edge, more like a gravestone. So this isn't an actual skull. This is a carving of a head with a beveled edge, and I'd imagine part of a burial. And this is in fact on a burial mound as well. There are a bunch of these burial mounds in Gale Crater, and they seem to have what look like covered up entrances where you would have obviously been able to get in and out to put burials inside it, perhaps more like a long barrow, very much like you would see in places like Ireland and Europe and all over the world, in fact. Okay, so we've got different examples of what look like burials here. There's this thing that I sent to they showed it on Ancient Aliens. This is a tiny pyramidal structure, a step pyramidal structure with steps on the side and a cross type thing on the top with some strange finger-like things sticking up. That's really odd, but that's still quite small. That's only about a foot tall, maybe 2. But this is the very top of a burial structure probably, and also seems to have a face carved in it here. Just about make out a face there, but may not be. Not really clear enough. We have this one here, that's Mars corpse in Coffin. This is a video I did years ago. There's a small corpse with legs. You can see the legs there, because this is an arm. This is the head wearing a helmet or something. And we have a headstone here. We have the lid or side of the coffin there, and the other side has kind of fallen away. We've got artifacts here, which were probably buried with it. And I think there's also a footstone here, if you look at that video, Mars corpse in Coffin. And there's also a strange thing near it as well, in the same image, of what looks like some kind of strange thing with a plant growing up it, like vine leaves or something, like a vine plant growing up it here. Very odd indeed. And when you enhance it, it goes green. When you enhance the contrast, it goes very green. So that was interesting. So I got loads of these things. There was this thing that was found by Monty Williams, of course. A famous find that Monty found years ago also. 2014. This looks like a grave marker or some kind of marker, and it has writing on it. It looks a bit like Fry or Try 647, but of course there wouldn't be English style writing on Mars, would there? Why would there be? There can't be. It must mean something else. But they look similar to our symbols. The numbers especially. Very similar to ours. If they are numbers, they may not be. You can see it kind of clearer in the negative image there. It's got a bit closer than we are. So that was a great find from years ago by Monty Williams. And I think that may be a grave marker or something similar. So some have got writing on, some have got art, like faces or skulls on them. And there was this one which I also sent to Ancient Aliens years ago, and that was on one of their shows, I think from 2016, about Mars, called Destination Mars. They showed this, the line on its back, and we've got the foot here, foot end, and we've got the head here. There's even a cross on the side of it, and some interesting. This is the lid. You can see this part here, it's the lid. that would probably open up, and there would probably be someone inside it. So there we are. And there are one or two others I've got here, but I won't show you them all now. There was also this one which I showed recently in a recent video, an example of a pyramidal shaped, what looks like a grave marker. Interesting. This is quite small. This is similar kind of size, 4 or 5 inches. So there are loads of these things all over the place, and most of them are fairly small. This one here, I would say, is about a bit bigger than 5 inches. This is further away, but still it's reasonably large. So I think it's probably more like 8 or 9, perhaps. But really good example there. So there are lots of these things, and some of them are probably grave markers or headstones, and some of them may not be. There was also this thing which I found in the same set, which is from Sol 1081. This thing looks like a carved object with a head here, but it may not be. It looks a bit to me like it's been carved, but it may not be, of course. It may just be an eroded rock. So I'm not really sure about that one. That's enhanced. So there are other things in this area of the Gigapan. There was also this thing which I really can't make out. I don't know what to make of this. You've got this strange thing attached to this kind of whatever, this kind of weird little structure with some really odd kind of what look like carved details and things around it. Now this is probably only a couple of feet wide, this whole thing, 2 or 3 feet. But this looks like some kind of weird head carved onto a side of this kind of part of a structure. Now could this have been a tomb that all kind of broken away? That stood up like this, like a little 2 or 3 foot long tomb? Who knows? Very odd. I'll try and get some more detail with that. I'll take some more clips of that and see if I can drag more detail out of it. I've gone a bit too close with it there. I need to go back a bit. So there's lots of things in this area. There's also this thing which is nearby as well from the same set. There we are, which is a strange kind of hexagonal shape with what looks a bit like a face on it, but it's very unclear, and I've had to darken the bejesus out of it to get any real kind of detail, and it's not conclusive, I would say, but interesting. That's very near this gravestone thing, this grave with headstone that Thomas has found. So there's lots of things in this Gigapan, so do have a look at it. So yeah, there are lots of other things here, and this is a nice bright Gigapan, and there are some other interesting things here, and some of them don't look entirely natural, but I'm sure most of them probably are. But if you have a burial area, then there's bound to be other burial items and perhaps funerary art like figurines and broken bits and pieces lying around. Well done to Thomas again, Thomas Smosny, for finding this. Really cool find. He put it up on my Mars Magazine page just the other day, or a few days ago at least, and I thought that was really cool. So if you want to check out some of those things that I showed you, I did send them to Ancient Aliens on the History Channel, so you can click on this video. It's on YouTube. It's called Ancient Aliens: Revealing Details in Rover's Mars Images. That's season 11, episode 2. History, yeah, Ancient Aliens, right? If you want to see some of the things that I just showed you, they're in here, and this is only about a 5-minute clip of the show. The actual show is about 45 minutes long, I think, or 50 minutes or something like that. And that was when I appeared in, so you'll see me in that as well. I'm not going to show you it now because I'll probably get into trouble. A lot of people have complained they haven't been able to get notifications from my channel, even though they have the bell pressed. Now, what I think's happened, and I have spoken to Google about this, if you go to your settings in your YouTube account and then go to notifications, you've got all these switches, right? Now, I think when they updated YouTube a couple of years ago, they added this, but they made the default setting off. So they actually turned off everyone's notifications, right? In the notifications preferences menu here. So what you need to do is turn them on. You don't have to turn them all on, of course, like I've got here. You can turn them on or off, but this may be why a lot of you aren't getting notifications about my videos and other video channels you're subscribed to. I only just figured this out. I actually sent this to YouTube and said, can you please sort this out? Because over the last couple of years, I've probably lost millions of views due to this error, because they automatically switched everyone's subscriptions off. Even though you're subscribed, you weren't getting subscription feeds or recommendations. So there we are. So thanks for watching, everybody. Loads and loads of gravestone type structures here and burials. I'll put all these in at the end so you can have a good look through them and compare them back to back and see the details up close and in your own time. Okay, thanks for watching, everybody. See you soon.